President Trump needs to shut down this phony testing he can't arbitrarily do it. He's got to have scientists, and there's plenty of them who say this test is not valid. And he needs to say, you prove that it's valid within, 5, 10 days, or I'm declaring this pandemic over. And, the great thing they could do, he's being too silent. A tweet just isn't going to do it. He needs to come out and campaign very strongly that this is a phony pandemic. This has been done not only to destroy the American economy, but also to destroy my reelection chances by making everyone dissatisfied with the country. And if he starts to come out and fight this, there are a tremendous amount of people who already suspect that this is baloney. People are resisting the mask mandate all over the United States. Just totally unnecessary. The masks don't work. It's just hype, and people are getting tired of it. So Trump could become extremely popular.
No, I totally agree. If he tackles this and exposes a fraud and exposes Fauci, he will win. If he stays basically in the middle of this lukewarm, he's going to lose. All right, Joel Skousen runs worldaffairsbrief.com. He's the editor there. He was a Naval Marine Corps aviator in Vietnam. His family's been at the forefront of exposing the globalists from the beginning, Cleon Skousen. And I really respect his view because it's one of the most accurate views out there. And I'm trying to get him to town soon. I think he's agreed to do it, to come do 2 hours on my show, 2 hours on David Knight, 2 hours on Owen, or more, just about where to strategically relocate. Because I personally cannot live in Austin anymore and pay for the abortions. Because if you live here, it's the only county in Texas where they make you pay for abortions. And it's just too dangerous now. They've got homeless everywhere, communists everywhere. It's like LA is emptied out here. It's really out of control. But then where do I go? And I've studied the country, so I know when I've studied his book and his film about this that it's very accurate. But we made the film 5, 6 years ago. The book's 5, 6 years old. There's a new edition. We'll show that to you. But we're not here to sell books. We're here to understand that there's a system coming in that doesn't want families, that doesn't want free will, that wants to create a system so horrible, a false reality so horrible that children are born into something where they can't even differentiate and can be tricked into giving over their free will. So I didn't talk to Joel Skousen before he came on of worldaffairsbrief.com and joelskousen.com about what he wants to cover up front, but just the big picture, because he always talks about Trump is not a bad guy, but Trump doesn't have good advisors, and it's totally true. It's been proven right that he does understand conspiracy, he does understand the big issues, and that's his pitfall. So do we advise the president? Do we predict what's coming next? The big war with China, the election fraud, the biggest perils Joel Skousen sees. For the next 8 minutes before we go to break, Joel, you have the floor. What do you want to hit first? What do you want to impart to the audience first?
Well, first of all, let's talk about Donald Trump. He does, with his instincts, see some things. He just reposted on Monday a tweet by another person saying that we're being lied to about the pandemic. And that means that Trump has good instincts about that, but he doesn't have the backup information. So the White House comes out and they're supposed to, oh, no, there's no disagreement with Fauci. He's fine. They're undermining the president because the president doesn't have anyone around him to feed him the facts that the tests are not accurate. And that's what's driving this agenda, is that everyone's testing positive. Well, the death rate is plummeting. So we know the tests aren't accurate. We know that the tests pick up all types of coronaviruses, not just COVID-19, and that anyone dying is because of chronic disease and immunodeficiency, virtually 100%. Nobody who's healthy dies or even really gets
So it doesn't matter if he takes control of the testing, because still they're going to engage in fraud.
Well, that's right. I don't know how you take control of the testing. The point is they falsified the test. They don't have a gold standard. A gold standard on a COVID-19 test would be a complete genetic breakdown, which would take a couple of weeks to do for every test. That's what it would take to actually determine, because there's so many refined little pieces of RNA. When you take a common piece of RNA that's common in any coronavirus, and then you amplify it with a PCR test, sure, you're going to have tons of false positives, but this needs to be outlawed. Trump needs to say, you prove to this group of scientists that this test is valid and actually does pick up COVID-19 and only COVID-19, or we're going to stop the testing and we're going to, declare this pandemic
so
over.
let's stop there.
the
That's
state of
exactly where I was
emergency.
going. What is the blueprint? You just said it. Trump says, I want you to scientifically prove your fraudulent test. It's been proven wrong, and that will shut them down. So give your advice right now, Joel Skousen of World Affairs Brief, to President Trump.
But President Trump needs to shut down this phony testing he can't arbitrarily do it. He's got to have scientists, and there's plenty of them who say this test is not valid. And he needs to say, you prove that it's valid within, 5, 10 days, or I'm declaring this pandemic over. And, the great thing they could do, he's being too silent. A tweet just isn't going to do it. He needs to come out and campaign very strongly that this is a phony pandemic. This has been done not only to destroy the American economy, but also to destroy my reelection chances by making everyone dissatisfied with the country. And if he starts to come out and fight this, there are a tremendous amount of people who already suspect that this is baloney. People are resisting the mask mandate all over the United States. Just totally unnecessary. The masks don't work. It's just hype, and people are getting tired of it. So Trump could become extremely popular.
No, I totally agree. If he tackles this and exposes a fraud and exposes Fauci, he will win. If he stays basically in the middle of this lukewarm, he's going to lose.
Exactly right, Alex. And he is staying middle because he's got advisors saying, oh, no, you can't contradict Dr. Fauci, who, by the way, in Italian means jaws, plural. Dr. Jaws is part of the deep state. He's making millions for his organization, as himself personally. So is Bill Gates. They're formulating an RNA vaccine, which is going to be very dangerous. There's going to be a vaccine mandate eventually. That's one of the reasons.
It's so easy to destroy Fauci with the insider trading and the conflicts of interest. I mean, Trump's got him.
That's right. Now, he's going to get a lot of backlash from the news media, talking about conspiracy theories, and they'll say, oh, all this has been debunked about Fauci. That's why he's got to have the facts. Trump, if he's wise, he better hire an advisor who knows what's going on in the deep state, who can get the facts for him, someone who can run and knows how to find the experts to get him the facts to back these things up. Because if they attack Trump in the media and he's got the facts to back him up, he can destroy them. But if they attack him and he doesn't have the facts to back up, they just say, oh, he's tweeting again, then it's going to be a problem for him. So, there's a lot of other things going on. But right now, our biggest problem is going to be to reelect Donald Trump, not because Donald Trump has really changed much. He has slowed down the globalist agenda. He's given them fits just because he keeps changing his mind. But they want him out of the way. And I'll tell you, if Joe Biden gets in, we're going to have complete loss of free speech, gun rights. We're going to have the Green New Deal shut down.
Talk about that. What happens if Joe Biden gets in? What they're planning?
Well, Joe Biden is already talking about doing a climate change agenda. He's talking about, doing anti-discrimination, increasing anti-discrimination laws. He's going to take Black Lives Matter, which is about Black Lives Matter. It's about shutting down your free speech and shutting down the free speech of CEOs and college professors everywhere. I mean, there's just a vendetta on if anyone even refuses to take a hostile point of view against Western culture, you're racist. They're just name calling all over the place, and someone needs to really stop it. I mean, the censorship is incredible that's going on.
Well, that's it. I mean, Western Christian civilization is antithetical to the Satanic New World Order, so it must be attacked. And all these CEOs think you capitulate, it goes away. No, you capitulate, it's the end. We need to stand for the cross, for Christ, for the West now. How do we do that?
It's really hard when they have all of the levers of power tied up. I mean, they've got Google under their control, Amazon under control. My book, Strategic Relocation, the 4th edition, just got taken down on July 3rd on Amazon. They removed my listing. It was the only one up there. And they have refused to put it back up. They keep giving me excuses, saying, oh, it didn't have this technical, and I changed that. It didn't have this, and I changed that. And finally, they came out and said, we had to take it down without reason, and said, you can get it back up by removing all inventory. And what kind of an answer is that? They're just messing with me. It's like what happened to you years ago with YouTube, Alex. And of course,
Well, they're attacking anything that's competent. They don't want competent information out there.
Well, that's right. I mean, it's a war of information, and they know that if people get the right information, most Americans are still good people. The violent Black Lives Matter minority is still a very small minority, but it's growing because of the public education system indoctrinating.
Oh, it's being fanned and promoted by the. Stay there. Joel Scalzo is our guest. Absolutely. It is the establishment, it is the man. Black Lives Matter is not the underdog. It is not the rebel. It is Satan's army literally masquerading as black people as its cover. When in truth, it wants to exterminate every person they can, including black babies. Joel Scalzo, World Affairs Briefs, our guest. Stay with us. All right, Joel Scalzo at worldaffairsbrief.com, editor-in-chief, our guest. I'm Alex Jones, your host. And Joel's a smart guy. He's studied this politically, economically, militarily, but also from a spiritual perspective, which I think is dead on. The more I researched, the more I get into it, and what he's talking about is actually what's happening. So let's look at this. I'm going to throw you a wild card here. From the perspective of God versus Satan on this planet and free will, this test we're part of, what is Satan planning to do to America? And what does Donald Trump need to know to counter that?
Well, Satan, we're getting a front row seat to what Satan is doing. He's got a core of people who I believe there is revelatory control of a core of hierarchy of the globalist conspiracy. And they in turn control a lot of impressive dark side figures within the administration, what we call the deep state. The deep state is not running things. They take orders from higher up. But it's interesting that Satan uses a great deal of yes-manship from people so that a lot of many millions of people who are involved in Black Lives Matter and other things don't know about the conspiracy that's ultimately running the show, but they're yes men. For example, the COVID-19 phony pandemic could not have been done without an excessive and false honor towards the medical profession. And so the education and media establishment has built up doctors over the year as the gold standard of something that we should always listen to. And so even though this does not look evil on its own, now it's being used for evil purposes. So it's very, very important.
Well, yeah, we know historically that authoritarian regimes use medical systems to push tyranny because it's trusted.
That's right. And it shouldn't be trusted. The medical system is very authoritarian. The reason that doctors are going along with what's happening, even though they know and have their suspicions, I just consulted with one in Oklahoma this past week.
Oh, the state senator in Minnesota is under investigation to be fired because he said it's overhyped and showed the numbers. Sorry.
That's exactly right. And every doctor knows if they do not follow the CDC guidelines on this stuff, they're going to have their license revoked. So it's all about licensing and control. And the legislature has turned over their powers of control over the medical system to state licensing boards. And so they're completely independent.
And that's under NIH and that's under WHO. So that's how we get the UN attack.
That's right. So there's a hierarchical system. And of course, I've said long ago, the propaganda that our children get in public schools is finally coming home to roost. It's been over for a long time. It's just so much visible to people because now when the media comes out in favor of this phony Black Lives Matter and destroy Western civilization, call everyone a racist, including Christopher Columbus and Thomas Jefferson and George Washington, so many of the public educated and college educated people who've been indoctrinated are suddenly on board, and we say, what happened? Well, it's been going on for dozens of years. It started when I was in high school in the 1960s, when we had Marxist and Leninist professors starting to pump this thing into the schools.
And you said this 20 years ago, they go after Washington and the flag, that they want that.
That's right. That's right. Now, there's a misconception among many people commenting on the internet, Alex, about this being a resurgence of communism, because there's a lot of Marxists and communists involved in the Black Lives Matter movement. But this is true. But they have to remember that these are the globalists, like George Soros, who are funding these things. And they have long, ever since the beginning of the last century, they have been funding communism to break down the social order so that they can come in with an alternative solution which people wouldn't accept. going from free market to the semi-socialism of globalism.
Exactly. Communism brings down the capitalist system, but it's not the system. It just brings it down to bring in the globalist system.
That's right. Who comes in with a more moderate form. It's still socialism, but they tell you, you own it, you're still free, you still have fundamental rights, except. There's all kinds of exceptions, both to regulate, just like the EU Constitution. You got the right of free speech, except. You've got the right of private property, except. And those exceptions are when the society needs it. It's just incredibly deceptive. And so this is a very serious satanic agenda. What Donald Trump needs to know is that he's got to learn to fight openly. He doesn't have to mention Satan necessarily, but he's got to.
No, but I agree. He has to call it out as a Chi-Com globalist plot. He has to hit it head on. That's what has power.
That's right. And he has to also, for example, defund the left. One of the ways that he could do that is to get the IRS to investigate the Open Society Foundation of George Soros and Democracy Alliance. Those are the two major 501c3 organizations that are funding terror, domestic terror in the United States. And that's illegal. But they do it with a very sophisticated money laundering system. For example, Democracy Alliance will give grants to Black Lives Matter Foundation, which is not a 501c3 organization, not a charitable.
Explain this fraud, because I talked to the FBI. They don't even understand this. I know your uncle's a famous FBI agent who exposed this. Explain how we bring them down, cutting their money off.
Well, we have to. 501c3 charitable organizations are not allowed to give money to non-charitable purposes. They're not allowed, let alone domestic or violent groups and things. And so what they do is they have